Buenos dias on this lazy Sunday Cito episode, and GSVM, the long-awaited Eclipse ES airdrop checker, is now live, and TGE appears to be imminent. We're going to look into this and how you can check your allocation if you have been an avid turbo tapper like I was. I was addicted to this for a couple of months at least. So yeah, and I'm also quite happy with my allocation. But I want to start off with the video kind of recapping a little bit some thoughts from the last video I made, which I was a bit unsure how they will perform and also how people will react to it, because I just woke up on that day and I felt like I have to make this type of video where I'm just sharing my honest thoughts about the state of Cosmos right now, what went wrong with some of these coins, what went wrong internally. And this is actually coming from someone who is outside, right? I think sometimes people have this thought or perception that I'm somehow part of the Interchain Foundation, I'm somehow part of any team or whatever, but I'm entirely independent and I'm also just observing. Of course, through the channel, I built up a lot of deep and close relationships to many core contributors in the space. And I think I've always tried to maintain good relations, even with teams that are probably, in competition or whatever. But yeah, in this video, I'm sharing a list of 10 plus coins that I'm just going through without script, just like woke up on the day for like, I have to kind of share that. Some coins I bought more of. Some others I completely wrote off. For example, Juno is one of them, completely running off. Fmos is also one of them, I'm completely running off. But in dYdX and Osmo are some that I actually bought some more. And this led me to the statement I said, which is, I'm a ride or die Cosmo, right? Over the years, obviously went very, very deep in Cosmos with not only my channel, but also with customers, with Stakecito. And during that time, however, I always questioned my own thesis. I always thought, is Cosmos still going to make it? Or am I just completely wrong and this thing is going to zero, right? And if you look at the chart and price developments over the past 3 years, probably you can call me delusional, right? And I think I'm actually fine with that. Because I also said in the last video that the line between deep conviction and delusion is very, very thin. In fact, it's blurry. And only time will tell if my deep conviction is something that will pay off, or if my deep conviction was just delusion and a dead end in the end of the day, right? I don't really know. But at this point, I'm just very, very committed, while I'm also looking at other ecosystems. I also said in the last video, I do have also non-Cosmos holdings that I think are currently around probably 10% of my whole portfolio, or 15, something like that. But yeah, we're still here. We're definitely going to survive this bear market. I'm truly committed, convinced, and more bullish than ever, believe it or not. Of course, you've been hearing that for the past years here on this channel, but I am very, very bullish on Cosmos still, especially because the new Cosmos is only 6 months old. And the new Cosmos represents a new, very product-oriented, fast execution of some of the ideas that have been floating around for a long time, but that are now getting pushed over the finish line. And we're also seeing major changes along the way, right? For example, the pivot towards the EVM, abandoning CosmWasm pretty much, especially for the Cosmos Hub, for Sane Network, for many other chains out there. But yeah, this is all coming and I'm excited and bullish about that. Well, I also really appreciate your guys' comments under the last video. Some of you guys sharing your feedback, how it's been over the years. And I'm in the same boat and I can very much relate to that. So it's good to hear that some of you guys out there are still there, have been around for a couple of years and still have this true conviction. You didn't give up. You didn't start chasing random meme coins on Solana. You didn't pivot to something else. You stick to your principles, to your fundamental true conviction, right? And that's also where I'm at right now. But yeah, I appreciate all your comments. Generally speaking, we talk a lot about how Cosmos, the Internet of Blockchains, is very perfect for different verticals because they can optimize for their use cases, right? So in payments, you need fast transactions and low fees. For RWAs, you need to have a high security standard and security practices. And you can also build flavors of permissioned or permissionless blockchains, right? So you can really customize your chain specifically to the industry or vertical that you're active in, right? And that's why the Cosmos stack is the most robust, most customizable, and also interoperable through IBC, of course, stack out there. And until now, there has barely been any business development, any BD, any efforts to reach out and land deals. Like you saw, for example, last week in Cannes, Arbitrum announced that Robinhood is going to launch on the Arbitrum stack, which, as of my understanding, is not going to accrue any value for the ARB token because they're just using the stack to build their own L2. But apparently also Arbitrum paid a lot of money and did a lot of BD and did a lot of the hard work to convince them to not only build a chain, but also to use the Arbitrum stack to do that. And Cosmos has had very, very organic, very, very natural growth and adoption rates in crypto because the foundation, the Interchain Foundation, that is in that case the equivalent of what the Arbitrum core team did, they have never really had a clear actionable game plan to do BD and outreach. But now, 6 months ago, something major happened, and now we actually have a team that is doing that, that is actively reaching out, that is also engaging with the community, that is also publicly representing, proudly representing Cosmos. And we have people, faces, co-CEOs, 2 of them actually, that are also holding themselves accountable to this and that are engaging in these conversations. Well, Cosmos, we talked a lot about how it's optimized for AI, how it's optimized for RWAs. It's also perfect for stablecoins. And in fact, stablecoins is a big topic, not only because it is necessary for a thriving DeFi ecosystem, which we have seen in the first Cosmos season we had in 2021. Terra's UST was instrumental to that, was essential because it opened the liquidity floodgates, but then also it dried out very quickly after the collapse of Terra, and that also has had lasting effects on Cosmos DeFi. But now we have a new generation of stablecoins, and there's actually a couple of projects that are choosing the Cosmos stack to build their chain on, which is, of course, not directly accruing value for Atom. And when I say these things like, oh, we're landing a new chain that is building in Cosmos, I don't mean to indicate that this is somehow bullish directly for Atom, because it doesn't accrue value for Atom, at least until now. Maybe in the future that will change, and I can explain why and how. But as of now, Stable, for example, which is the USDT chain, the Tether chain, being built on a customizable fork of the Comet BFT, previously Tendermint consensus algorithm, and the Cosmos SDK, could mean or indicate that it makes it much easier to also implement IBC out of the gate. And if they would implement IBC Eureka, then yes, then this would directly accrue value for Atom, because IBC Eureka burns Atom with every transaction that routes through IBC V2, especially the version of Eureka. So Stable was announced, native USDT, fast finality, consumer-friendly, EVM compatible as well. $150 billion, the most successful application product market fit in all of crypto stablecoins, right? So you have that. Then you have Noble, which I already mentioned, the USDC chain as it started, but it became a lot more than that. They now have their own stablecoin as well. They also have native issuance of Ondo's USDY. Ondo itself is moving towards Cosmos, launching a Cosmos chain. And the Interchain Foundation or Interchain Labs, the operational arm of the ICF, is also actively seeking the conversation with them and also actively trying to synergize with them for the better of the Cosmos ecosystem. Also, hashnotes USYC is also issued on Noble. So highly successful, hundreds of millions in TVL. Then, of course, you have Ondo, I already mentioned it, USDY, and also OUSG, both of which can be compatible or are directly enabled on Cosmos. So that is bullish. And then, of course, we have Shade, which we've been covering actually a long time before the chain even went live, or the app went live on Secret Network. Silk, one of the best decentralized stablecoins out there, packed by a basket of assets, including Bitcoin, but also USD, Japanese yen, and gold. And also has a privacy feature, which is also very cool. Also, finally, what they're mentioning here is Prism. They also have Sky, previously MakerDAO, integrated and compatibility here as well. So Prism also very interesting what they're building here. I haven't really caught up there on the latest, but definitely also cool to see that. Now I want to share a couple of updates on 4 coins. We have Atom, dYdX, Dymension, and also Eclipse that is coming up, which we're going to cover as well with the airdrop. As for Atom, we have now crossed the bonded ratio of 60%. And the more we go up, especially if we cross 2/3, 67%, we are going to see the inflation come down to a floor of 7%. Remember, the tokenomics for Atom work in a dynamic inflation rate mechanism, which means that if we are below the goal bonnet, then the inflation will trend and go up towards the roof of 10% after the halving. Before that, it was 20%. I actually endorsed and supported the halving proposal, which I think a lot of people also didn't really like, and also maybe might have contributed to the fork of Atom 1, but it's a whole different chapter. And if it's above the 67% gold bonnet, then the inflation will go down towards a floor of 7%. I was actually also a proponent to remove that floor so that we can actually also see, Atom inflation go towards 0, or at least go down, right? And maybe even become deflationary at some point. But of course, that would also entirely change the dynamic and some of the value propositions, because Atom is still very attractive to many stakers out there, and also node operators, of course, for being a high inflation or high staking APR chain. And you can also see that coincidentally with the acquisition of Skip Protocol and the rebirth of Cosmos and the Interchain Foundation around 6 months ago, the staking ratio has gone up significantly from below 54% to now approaching 61%. So it keeps going up and up and up and up. Smart Stake, big shout out. They're also running Validator. Also tracking the pending undelegations, which was something we have kept a close eye on in December of last year, because there were massive undelegations across the board. But since then, up only. And you can see Coinbase is actually massively staking atoms. So Coinbase users or Coinbase themselves, I don't know, but Coinbase validator, by far the largest one, 3 times larger than the second validator when it comes to atom stake. So they are by far the biggest actor and biggest governor of the Cosmos Hub and Atom is Coinbase, right? Massive inflow in atoms, 2.1 million over the past 30 days. Actually, if you filter, you can see Coinbase rank 1, Kiln, which is an institutional validator, 1.8 million, massive inflows as well. Upbit Staking, one of the largest Korean exchanges, also 1.2 million. Then Kepler, 800K. We see Ledger, we see Nansen, we see Cosmos Station. A lot of big institutional validators or large companies, large organizations, exchanges that are seeing massive inflows. Also Binance here. And I think, also Kraken. So you can see like all these actors are still running validators. So that's one trend. At the same time, I also want to just point out this piece of information that Coinbase is running 3 validators for some unknown reason, at least unknown to me. I don't know what the point is of having 3 validators. If that is for the exchange, maybe that's their own holdings. I don't know, but whatever. They have a new one also. They launched around a year ago or something, but that is not really seeing much traction. But that's unfortunate for 2 potential community-led validators that are dropping out because of that. But anyways, that's that. We're also now seeing on Twitter, this also represents, right? And Mac, the co-CEO alongside Barry, they are bull posting Atom. And I think they're actually doing a very good job at that. Mac commented under Ansem's post here, which coins would you have for the next 10 years? And Mac said 20% Atom, 15% ST Atom, 15% D Atom, Drop Atom, and Stride Atom, that is. And then the rest 50% in stocks, which is what Ansem also asked for. And then Ansem was like, bro said Atom, like, man, it's 2025. It's either Solana or Hyperliquid. But we're still here, as deep, committed, convinced, delulu cosmonauts maybe. We'll see, time will tell. We're still here, we're still standing, and we are still surviving those times. And like Mike is saying, the new Cosmos is 6 months old. They CTO'd the whole ecosystem. They definitely did a lot of solid contributions with Skip Protocol over the past 3 years. So that is very, very solid. And I think they have a very strong network that they're also leveraging. And hopefully, this can also lead to more integrations on a higher level, maybe on a governmental level. Like we've seen this announcement this morning from Tonchain, where you can basically stake $100,000 worth of Ton for 3 years, and then your staking rewards, or somehow, I don't know how exactly that works, makes you eligible for a golden visa in the UAE. And I think with Atom, we could easily do something like that as well. We just need to talk to the guys here. Definitely helps that we did Cosmos last year in Dubai, because we definitely have those connections to make this happen. But of course, this requires the foundation to also be involved in that conversation, because who am I, right? I'm just a YouTuber guy. I'm just the meetup guy for some people at least. So I'm not in a position to decide on that, to push that over the finish line, but I'm definitely in a position where I can initiate and facilitate those conversations, right? It actually is pretty straightforward. And I think this is definitely something Atom should be doing as well, and many more things like that. Well, that's Atom, still bullish, still standing. Bought some more the other day. Excited for what Mark is cooking and Barry. Cosmos EVM is coming, and many, many more things. Another coin I'm very bullish on, because they're aggressively incentivizing and rolling out new features on their chain, but also to attract and make traders' lives easier, is dYdX, which I also bought the other day. Some more here. Bought around 50 cents, now it's 51. Down a bit today. But they're aggressively attracting new users right now. A lot of market, a lot of volumes that are coming in, new traders. They have an incentivized referral campaign right now. They have an incentivized Kaito campaign, and many more things. So dYdX, if you look at the numbers, is still, of course, lagging behind big time on Hyperliquid. But we'll hopefully see the fruits of these aggressive incentives coming over the next few weeks, maybe months. So far in this market, to be able to survive and to hopefully also come out of this with momentum, with growth, is very, very solid. And like I said, also in the last video, surviving is the single most underrated achievement in all of crypto. Now, they also just launched builder codes, which is a feature that allows any developers without permission, without approval, just with lines of code to monetize their front end. So they can just tap into the dYdX engine. We'll probably have more content on that coming in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. Now, I also want to move over to Dymension, a rollup framework that was very, very exciting in January, February, March 2024 when it launched. I think around that time, Q1, Q2 of last year. They also launched with a massive airdrop. I think it was at $6, $7, $8 even. And I made a video where I also said that I sold my Dime airdrop, at least large parts of my Dymension airdrop. I never dumped the entire amount, but like 70-80%, or like $5 or $6, something like that. And people were mocking at me like, oh my God, you're paper handing. But yeah, I think I paid most of my rent with that airdrop actually. So for like 3 or 4 months here in Dubai, which is nice. But yeah, Dymension is still there, 22 cents right now, 4% staking APR, 2% inflation, and has not really gained significant traction over the past year, I would say. Obviously, they have lost a lot of momentum. It was a deep bear market, a brutal bear market, and also they could not really attract a lot of roll apps on their chain. However, they've just announced that there's the season 2 airdrop that you have to take immediate action if you're still staking your DYM, because the requirement here is that you have to have held, I think, at least 17 DYM that you have to have staked. There was a snapshot. I think it's somewhere in the docs here. Anyways, you have 3 days to check your eligibility to register for your DYM Enhanced airdrop. And yeah, you can connect your Kepler, you can connect your MetaMask or any other wallet here, Leap as well, of course. You can also see the number of roll apps that was deployed is currently at 180. Some of the ones that had some traction when they launched, like NIM Network, $820,000 market cap. But overall, I think Dymension so far at least has been very, very underwhelming. Of course, as validators, it's also in our interest in the long term that Dymension succeeds. And my personal philosophy, as always, I'm not an investor into Dymension. I don't have any personal like financial stake in that, besides of course through Stakecito, you can say, but even with our validator, I think we're far from yeah, we're very, very far from being profitable on this chain. Anyways, Dymension season 2 airdrop, go check if you are eligible and register for your airdrop. Maybe they have a bit of a comeback, because again, I think also, like I said, with Saga, Dymension, even Berachain, Initia, right, Nilian, Story Protocol, I think a lot of these new chains that have not seen a bull run at all ever, we still need to give them time. And as long as the core team is still there, the founders are still there, right? Even Babylon, for example, as long as they still have runway, which many of them have because they just raised like a year ago and they raised like decent 8 figures, maybe even 9 figures, we'll have to give them time to prove themselves, to gain traction. And many of them might not make it, right? I'm not saying all of them are going to make it. I'm just saying I think for Dymension, we need to give them some more time. But as of right now, it definitely does not look very bullish. It does not look like they have a lot of momentum when it comes to roll-up adoption, all these kind of things. But we'll see. Again, time will tell. Now, wrapping up the video with the Eclipse ES checker that is now finally live. There was a lot of drama around it, of course, like always when there's an airdrop coming out, there's always drama. Because there's always groups of people that will not be eligible and they will just FUD the project or something like that, or whatever. They will just not support it, and they will complain. But there are some people that got very, very decent airdrops, like Geoffrey here, 57,000. But then others that saying, I'm not eligible, I didn't get it. They took a lot of time to manually review, at least that's what they're saying, and review and assess if somebody was cheating, right? And I think cheating is obviously if you use software to automatically tap for you, because TurboTap was the main basis for the airdrop. But also, if you were using other ways to cheat, right? If you use multiple devices, if you had some way to kind of just click 10x faster, 100x faster in a way that's almost not possible if you're just tapping organically with your own fingers, which is what I did and what most other people did. But those that didn't, I think they're not getting anything. And yeah, I'm very happy with my allocation that I got. I've been tapping like crazy for a couple of months at least. So yeah, I think it could make for a good airdrop. And where is the price going to land? I have no clue at all. The tokenomics are also not yet public. We just know that the max supply is going to be 1 billion tokens. So I would say anything between 30 and 50 cents in this market environment is probably realistic. Some say it can go to $1, $1.50, which definitely could be the case, right? And we can see references to other chains, even Story Protocol, for example, that is still holding up at a $3 billion FTV. So Eclipse ES could also go to $3 and just stay there for a little bit. But we don't know. The airdrop is fully unlocked, so there will not be any vesting. There's also going to be an additional airdrop for ASC after school club holders, and if that's like the premier NFT collection on Eclipse. And for that, there will not be, there's no snapshot or no vesting either, but you'll just get ES sent directly to your wallet on the day of TG, whenever that is. So gonna keep an eye out for that. And yeah, check your eligibility if you've been tapping TurboTap on Eclipse. Anyways, that's all for today. I hope you're, as me, deeply committed to what you're doing, what you believe in, and you don't flip-flop your opinions. Of course, sometimes it's fair enough to change opinions, but I think once you're committed, it's a ride or die thing. At least that's my kind of philosophy here. And yeah, I'm here. I've been here through multiple changes in leadership in Cosmos over the years, but I feel this one is the most substantial one and the most essential one, and I'm very, very excited for that. Airdrop is going to be great, and Cosmos will have its time. I'll see you very soon here in Cryptocito. Until then, stay safe and be good.